With great power comes great responsibility. Almost everybody knows this saying. While it was a comic book character that said this also applies to real life, especially when you want to go into cybersecurity. With the skill set that you've built up, you could cause havoc, get fined, end up in jail, or you can get a well-paid job and a promising career. To prevent yourself from ending up with a new roommate named Bubba, we must behave in an ethical manner while doing our work. In this video, we will teach you how to hack ethically. Ethics in cybersecurity encompasses a set of moral principles that guide us in conduct within digital environments. These principles revolve around honesty, integrity, respect for privacy, and accountability. Upholding ethical standards ensures we act responsibly, safeguarding sensitive information and promoting trust within the community. Behaving ethically in cybersecurity involves adhering to a set of guiding principles and values. While this sounds easy, it might be harder than you think. The easiest way is to show this by example. Imagine we have a hacker named Jack. Jack loves cybersecurity and he wants to behave in an ethical manner. Somewhere during the day he starts a port scan on a website. While you might think that this is allowed or disallowed, the reality is that we are already in a weird gray zone. If the server that Jack is trying to port scan is based in India, he's not allowed to perform port scans because the law in India mentions that port scanning without prior permissions is an illegal act. If the server is located in the US, then there's no explicit laws that criminalize port scanning. This shows that local laws can have a significant effect on what is considered ethical behavior. For this reason, it's in your best interest to know the local laws regarding cybersecurity and the laws of the country in which your server is hosted. Since we are not law experts, it's better to be on the side of caution and only engage targets that have given you explicit permission to perform tests on their infrastructure. What is explicit permission? Explicit permission is a written permission that is either given to you or the company that you work for. In this permission, it's described what you are exactly allowed to do on their servers. In a professional environment, this permission is signed by both sides. This does not happen in bug bounty hunting, but even there we have permission limits. When we look at one of the scopes that we can find on HackerOne, we can see there are limits imposed on what we are allowed to test on their infrastructure. As long as we stay within the scope and follow the rules set in the document, we should be in the clear. For this reason, it's important to read the scoping documents carefully. Let's look at some other examples that show how difficult ethics can be in certain situations. Let's say we've rented a server from a hosting company. We paid for it and are the only administrator on the server. Does this mean we can now perform pen tests on our server? The answer is both yes and no. While we own the server, we do not own the underlying infrastructure. That's owned by the hosting companies. They might have their own rules for penetration testing. When we look at policies of hosting companies, it's common for them to have rules that state that you are allowed to perform tests as long as you don't disrupt the hosting company services or impact any of the services of other customers. This example has shown us that even with your own rented servers, there are limits imposed on what we're allowed to perform on the systems. We recommend to check your hosting company policy before performing any testing on a server you have rented. Let's look at another example. This one we've encountered many times in questions on cybersecurity videos. You might have seen these questions or have been asked these questions. Can you recover my Facebook access? Quite often we receive messages like this, and we will reply to these questions always in a similar manner. No. Before we go into the exact reason why we say no, knowing what we've just explained to you about ethics, can you guess the reason why we say no and leave it in the comments? And what would be required for us to say yes to such a request? So, when are you allowed to test the system? The only way we are allowed to perform any testing on a server is if we have a contract with the company that owns the server and gives us permission to test it. This means that contracts have been signed between us and the company that is requesting a penetration test. This protects you and your team from lawsuits. As you can see, ethical behavior is a complicated but important part of cybersecurity. We must insist that if you want to practice, you do it in an ethical manner. To do this, we must stay within the bounds of the law. If you learned something, give this video a like. If you have any ethical questions, please leave them in the comments. Hack ethically, and thank you for watching.